we're recording.
Is everybody ready to get started?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Need to swear the witness.
This is
Ed,
James Curtis.
yeah, I'm sorry. Let me kind of got ahead of myself. Mr. Campbell, who's your next witness?
James Curtis.
All right. Is this Mr. Curtis?
Yes, sir.
All right. You're already ready. Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you swear do you swear or affirm the testimony you give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right. Mr. Campbell, you can proceed.
Would you please state your name for the record?
My name is Jeffrey Curtis.
And what's your current position at Terminix?
Currently, I am the full-time director of claims.
And what was your position immediately prior to that job?
Director of operations.
And is that a promotion to go from director of operations to director of claims?
Yes, sir.
Let's let the arbitrator know a little bit about who you are and what your background is in the bug business. Could you take him through a thumbnail sketch of when you went to work for Terminix, what jobs you held, and where you were?
Yes, sir. Going back to 2004, I was the branch manager of the Gulf Shores branch in Alabama. That was until sometime in 2005, and then I became the branch manager in Pensacola, which lasted approximately a year. Then I was the branch manager, can't recall, but then I would move to Niceville, Florida, where I stayed for quite some period of time before I became the Panhandle region director.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. That was my phone going off. Good opportunity. If everyone would please make sure your phones are turned to mute or silent. I apologize for that. Ms. Campbell, would you mind asking that question again?
Yes. Could you tell us what you did as a branch man? You were going through your background. You'd gotten up to when you were the operations manager for the Panhandle region, but could you give us a general description of what you do as a branch manager at Terminix?
Well, as the branch manager, it would be my responsibility for, making sure we had the right materials, that people went where they were supposed to go, that they did what they were supposed to do. We had the supplies we were supposed to have. I basically managed the branch, the services, and to a certain very small extent, claims as well.
Okay. And when did you become the region's manager or the operations manager for the Gulf region?
That was in May of 2018.
And what were your job responsibilities in that position?
To oversee the what we call the Panhandle region, which is really from parts of Louisiana all the way, across the Gulf Coast into Florida.
Did that include Mobile and Baldwin County, Alabama?
Yes, sir.
As operations manager, were you responsible for running a quality assurance?
You kind of broke.
Mr. Campbell, could you repeat that last question?
As operations manager, were you responsible for running what Terminix called a quality assurance program?
Yes, sir.
And what does quality assurance mean at Terminix as it relates to renewable termite contracts?
We're supposed to make sure that employees at Terminix provide services that meet the exacting standards at Terminix.
Does part of quality assurance mean that you're supposed to make sure that the services that you promised to provide in the contract have actually been provided to the appropriate standard?
Yes, sir.
Did anybody have more responsibility Gulf region for doing that other than yourself, Mr. Curtis?
Sorry, could you
I'm
repeat
sorry.
that?
Yeah, let me jump in here. You broke up just a little bit. Ms. Court Reporter, did you get all that question?
No, sir. Could you repeat it, please?
Ms. Court Reporter, let me give you this instruction. You're the only person that we can rely upon to make sure that you're making a record in this case.
Yes,
So
sir. I was about to jump in before Arbitrator Falls did.
you need to speak up for us if you're not getting something down so that we can make sure that we're getting a record, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We're all doing something new, but I appreciate it. So don't be shy about speaking up.
Yes,
The
sir.
pending question was whether as operations manager, he knows that part of what quality assurance is making sure that the service commitment that's promised in the company's contracts has actually been provided to the expected standard of care by the company.
Yes, sir.
And when these renewable termite contracts are issued in Alabama or elsewhere, does the customer get to change the terms of these contracts, or are they take it or leave it type offers?
They can accept the contract or not
Uh,
change the terms.
Now, as a result of being a branch manager in Alabama, did you have, you heard about in this case, your wood destroying organism permit?
Yes, sir. It was still valid, but I was not operating under it because I was not running a particular branch. But yes, sir, it was still valid.
And as long as you've got that license, is it part of your obligation to the state of Alabama to keep yourself informed of what the regulations require?
Yes, sir.
And do those regulations specify what type of language has to be in a contract if you're going to provide a liquid soil treatment to prevent termites?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Let me, Mr. Campbell, are you talking about the Department of Agriculture regulations that you referred to earlier?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was you called that a WDO?
A wood destroying organism permit.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Mr. Curtis, in order for the company to do business in the state of Alabama, do they have to have someone in each branch that has one of these permits?
Yes, sir.
And is one of the responsibilities of the person that holds that permit to ensure that the service provided in that office meets the minimum mandatory standard for doing termite prevention work in the state of Alabama?
It is both regulatory and part of Terminix's pledge.
Okay. So in the region where you were operations manager, both the branch manager who held a license and the operations manager would be responsible for making sure that there were systems in place so to see that the company actually provided the service that was promised in the contract. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say that that would be the intention. Yes, sir.
Now, in preparation for talking to the arbitrator, have you made yourself familiar with the Elizabeth and Brian Brett termite file?
Yes, sir.
And the contract that they were issued in there, the Defend Baiting System contract, do you recognize that as a form agreement that Terminix sold in the state of Alabama?
Yes, sir. That was a contract we sold specifically in Alabama. Yes, sir.
And I want to ask you to please refer to the yellow book that is in front of you, sir. It has been marked by us and we're referring to it as exhibit number 1, but you'll recognize it most easily because it has a canary yellow cover on it.
I got you.
In front of you?
Yes, sir.
You said that was exhibit 1. I'm sorry.
Yes, exhibit 1. It's a bright yellow binder.
All right.
I'm there.
And we have numbered these pages so we can all get on the same page. In the bottom of the page, there is a Bates number that says Brett.com- and then a number.
Yes, sir.
There may be some other bait stamps on there in the lower right-hand corner that indicate the source of that document, who produced it, but I'm going to refer to these numbers in the middle of the page on the bottom.
I'm with you.
I'd like for you to turn, if you would, to pages 6, 7, and 8, and let me know when you're there.
Yes, sir.
Is that the bait station contract, Mr. Campbell?
Yes, it is.
Yes, sir.
I'll display it on the screen to make sure everybody's on the same document. Does everybody see this Terminix subterranean termite baiting system contract, bait defend system?
Yes, sir. That's what I was looking at.
We can see it.
Now, I want to call your attention to the
Mr.
text
Campbell, could you
box
repeat that,
at the
please?
top of this contract. I want to refer you to this text box at the top of the contract. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Under the state of Alabama regulations, would you explain to this arbitrator what the significance of that text box is and why it's there?
We refer to that internally as a mandatory clause section box, and it identifies the services that are to be provided.
So,
Now,
Mr. Campbell, I'm seeing a couple different boxes here. Which box are you referring to?
I'm referring to the one that has the highlighted section that says
Okay.
this contract is for defined post-construction soil treatment.
Okay, thank you.
That is what y'all refer to internally as the mandatory clause box. Is that what you were indicating, Mr. Curtis?
Yes, sir.
Would you explain to the arbitrator what a mandatory clause box is and what's required to be in there as you understand Alabama regulations?
I guess the best way to describe it would be that it's supposed to be a very concise summary of our warranty commitment and our service commitment.
And if the company is going to provide a defined post-construction soil treatment, does that have to be disclosed in that text box?
Per the regulations, yes, sir. And yes, sir.
Now, this contract also provides in it that the company is going to install what the company calls a Terminix baiting system. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe that was a Centricon at the time.
Well, I wanted to follow up on that. Are you familiar, sir, with the fact that the regulations in Alabama also require that if you're going to use a baiting system, that you have to specify which federally and state registered baiting system you are going to use?
I have seen that in preparation for my testimony. Yes, sir.
Does
That
this,
was- I'm sorry, go ahead.
does this form contract that was issued to the Britt family specify that it's going to use, that the company plans to use the Centricon baiting system that you described?
That is a good question. I looked and it does not.
Is there any such thing that you have ever been aware of as the top quality assurance officer for the Gulf region that is registered and called by the regulators a, quote, Terminix baiting system, close quote?
Not registered or called by the regulators.
Now, let's talk for a minute about why that part of the service is important. Are you familiar?
Mr. Campbell, before you go forward, I was getting a little confused there. Mr. Curtis, the box that we're looking in this diagram, I see bait system and I see defined treatment. Are those the same thing or are those different?
Those are different.
Okay, and as I understood Mr. Campbell's question, Mr. Campbell, if I've got this wrong, if you would help me with this. What is it that this contract is calling for under the Alabama regulations?
Under the Alabama regulations, Your Honor, the regulations specify that you can provide either a baiting system or a soil-based termite prevention system, or you can provide both. And this contract at a high level provides for both. Our position is that the company never intended to and never provided the liquid part of the service at this house or for any other customer, and that in terms of the baiting system, that the contract illegally failed to specify which baiting system the customer was going to get, which is illegal.
All right. So there's all right. So there's two different issues.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead and proceed.
Now, Mr. Curtis, as you understand the requirement in the state of Alabama, is a customer supposed to be able to tell from looking
Mr.
terms
Campbell,
in
could
their
you repeat that?
contract which registered baiting system? Yes, Mr. Curtis, as you understand the regulations in Alabama, is the company supposed to spell out and identify the registered baiting system in the contract that the company intends to provide?
That is a regulation.
Does this contract do that?
No,
No, sir, it does not.
And I want to
I'm
probe that.
I'm sorry, Ms. Curtis, did you say your contract does not?
It does not identify the Centricon baiting system by name.
And it refers to what kind of system?
It generically sort of the Terminix baiting system, I believe, is what's identified in the contract, which is to give us a little bit of latitude so that we can provide, a different kind of baiting system if we need to.
All right. Sorry, Mr. Campbell, go ahead.
Mr. Curtis, can you think of any good reason for not specifying what baiting system is going to be used in this contract?
Just to give us some flexibility to put a different baiting system in if like for some reason we needed to.
Well, following up on that point, the company has actually during your tenure sold people baiting system contracts like this one that are called the Terminix baiting system. Y'all install the Centricon system and then you switch the customers to something else later on. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We went to advanced at some point.
And the Centricon system is the most widely known system that has more testing than any other baiting system on the market, correct?
I believe that is correct.
And it is the most expensive one to use and install at a customer's home, correct?
Certainly the most expensive.
And is it your understanding that what these regulations are designed to do is to prevent the kind of flexibility that you say Terminix wants? To sell a customer one type of baiting system and then switch them to a cheaper, less well-tested system?
I understand that now. Yes, sir.
Can you think of any reason that failing to specify which baiting system you're going to use in your contract could ever be appropriate under Alabama's regulations?
No, sir.
Is Terminix continuing to sell baiting system contracts despite this case being pending for over 2 years without specifying the baiting system to be used?
We're still apparently using the term Terminix baiting system in the generic sense.
And have you discussed what we've talked about here today with other executives at Terminix that using this language in a contract in Alabama fails to comply with the regulations?
I'm not sure I brought it up, but yes, sir.
Do you know why the company is still issuing contracts that don't specify the baiting system?
I cannot answer that question. I do not.
Now let's talk about the other half of the service for a minute, the liquid termite prevention system. Are we on the same page about switching gears now?
Yes, sir.
When the company sold this contract in 2018, the company was using electronic handheld devices like tablets or iPads to sell these systems, correct?
Yes, sir.
And were those linked directly to the company's home office computer system?
They were supposed to be. Yes, sir.
The way the system works internally at Terminix, would that computer system be programmed if you sold this particular form contract to generate work orders for the type of service that technicians were supposed to provide to that customer?
Yes, sir. It would.
So just to be clear about it, if the computer recognized as selling this form agreement that was sold to the Brits, the computers would have a program in it that would generate a work order that would tell them what scope of service to provide, whether it's to install a Centricon system or to do a defined treatment or both, correct?
Yes, sir. It communicated between the sales force and the technical force.
And was the computer system ever programmed for this contract to do anything other than install a baiting system?
Apparently not.
So just to make clear, Mr. Curtis, the company sold this contract that promised to do install a baiting system and to provide a defined liquid soil treatment, but the computers were programmed only to install the baiting system. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you become familiar at some point in time in 2018 that Elizabeth and Brian Britt filed a complaint about the service at their home with the Alabama Department of Agriculture?
Yes, sir.
And at that time, were you the operations manager for the Gulf region that included Baldwin County where their home's located?
I was.
Did you have a role to play for the corporation in responding on behalf of the corporation to regulators relating to that complaint?
I was one of the participants.
At some point in time in the summer of 2018, did the state regulator, Joe Deborah, talk to the company about whether or not this form contract required it to provide both a baiting system and to provide a defined soil treatment?
Yes, sir.
And tell the arbitrator what Mr. Debro told the company they had to do with contracts like this one that promised a defined treatment in the text box.
He said that where a defined post-construction soil treatment was included in the mandatory clause section of the contract, that we were obligated to provide that service. And if we had not, that we were to go back and provide the services that were in the contract.
And tell the arbitrator when y'all did that at Brian Britt's house.
That was not done at Mr. Britt's house.
Tell the arbitrator whether that was ever done without there being a live termite infestation first discovered at a customer's house for any of the other families in Alabama who bought this same form contract.
It was not.
Was that your decision to make?
No, sir, that came from corporate.
Above your pay grade?
It would be above my pay grade.
Do you know who made that decision?
I could not tell you exactly who made that decision. I think it was definitely at the higher levels of the corporation.
Let me get this straight. The top regulator in the state of Alabama ordered your company to provide a defined soil treatment to every one of these customers that had bought this contract, and the company has failed to do that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you think of any good or honest reason for not providing compliance with that order?
No, sir.
Ms.
Who
Campbell,
made the dec-
let me jump in just real quickly. I had a follow-up question. Ms. Curtis, is Terminix still selling this contract?
No, sir. We sell, you know, it's a similar contract. It's called a dual defend contract now. So we do not sell this exact contract any longer.
So are there other customers in the state that are still under that contract?
If they haven't canceled their contracts, I assume there's still some.
And sort of as a follow-up to what Mr. Campbell was asking, have y'all reached out to those customers to offer a new contract or some other way comply with what the state had ordered you to do?
I believe everybody in Mobile and Baldwin County would have received a letter to change contracts, but have not complied with the order to provide the defined post-construction soil treatment.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Campbell.
I want to be clear about the timing on this, Mr. Curtis. Your company was ordered in August of 2018 to provide that liquid treatment for all customers with this contract, correct?
Everyone with the same contract, yes, sir.
And your company produced to us 17 customer files, just like Brian Britt's, in September of 2019. Do you recall those files being produced, Mr. Curtis?
Yes, sir. I didn't pick them out, but yes, sir.
Now, are you aware of the fact that despite being ordered to provide these treatments in August of 2018 and producing the files in September of 2019, that in that 13-month period of time, there had not been a liquid soil treatment provided to a single one of those customers' homes?
Yes, sir. I am aware of that.
Explain to this arbitrator the significance of the fact that 13 months elapsed between the time that your company was ordered to provide that service and the time that you produced those files that reflect that service was still not provided.
If I understand your question, we were undergoing some structural changes, some fundamental changes to the way we were doing business in Mobile and Baldwin County during that time period.
Mr. Curtis, what had to happen in that time period, since it was 13 months, is that 100% of those customers paid an additional annual renewal fee to your corporation to get that liquid soil treatment, correct?
They paid a renewal fee to renew their contract. I'm not trying to imply that they got a defined post-construction soil treatment for doing that.
So all of these customers, including the Bretts, the original purchaser of the bond paid for that treatment, and all of them would have paid for that treatment when they paid an additional renewal after the state ordered your company to provide that treatment and it was still not provided, correct?
Everyone other than Mr. Britt, I do not believe that they paid to renew their contract.
To your knowledge, sir, has the company refunded a nickel of the money that they collected for providing that service when the company never did the service they promised to provide?
No, sir. To the best of my knowledge, no, sir. It has not happened.
You indicated that your job prior to becoming the claims manager was quality assurance, and that your job was to see that the service commitment in the contract matched what the company provided at the customer's house. Explain to the arbitrator why the company never used its quality assurance program to provide what was in the contract that the state specifically told them to provide.
I'm not sure I know how to answer that question. I was ordered not to.
Thank you. No further questions. Does
All right.
Terminix have any questions for these? I'm sorry, I'm taking over your jobs.
Mr. Nicholson, does Terminix have any questions?
None at this time. Thank you, sir.
All right. Can this witness be released?
We'd like to have him kept on call, Your Honor, in case we need to recall him for some reason. He lives out of state and we need him available.
Okay. Mr. Curtis, can you be available, or can you work with Mr. Nicholson to make sure we can get back in touch with you and get you on the Zoom if we need you?
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll stop recording now.
Good job.